Hello, everyone. I'm live, right? Just checking. Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen. I am your moderator this morning. Thank you for joining us, to all of you. Today, we're going to be running through the 2024 predictions for what's happening in the developer market, specifically amongst the candidate side. When I say candidate, we're a jobs platform. I'll explain what we do in a second if you don't know who we are. We're going to be focusing very much on developer talent in the market, what's happening, where we're going, and would also like to hear from you where you think we're going, but we'll get there in a second. So like I said, I'm Stephen. I'm the VP of Community at OfferZen's. I'm going to be joined today later by our marketplace team, both Reece and Jason. They can introduce themselves. And we've got a combination of data from our 2024 State of the Developer Nation report, which just popped last week, as well as some information from our internal data of the OfferZen's platform and some external data. So we're going to run through all of that, and we're going to make some predictions, talk a little bit about where we're seeing things going, and it'll be really awesome to hear what you all think. So just before we start, OfferZen's is a developer marketplace. That means you can hire developers on OfferZen's, or as a developer, you can get a job on OfferZen's. It's a reverse marketplace, so companies apply to developers, not the other way around. And there's some really interesting dynamics, especially in the current market, of what that means. But ultimately, the idea is that it makes it a better job search for software developers and a better experience for companies, less noise in the market, and kind of more zen, less noise type of thing. So that's what we do. We'll explain, and because of that, we generate a bunch of data, right? We have thousands of software developers getting jobs through us every year, and we get a bunch of data through that. And our survey data is from 4,000 respondents from across South Africa. So just before we jump in, remember that you can see us, but we can't see you. So don't put up your hand or anything like that. If you do want to get involved, then you can put your questions in the Q&A feature. We also have a poll section, and there's some chat. So there's a bunch of ways for you to get involved, and you can do all of that. If you drop off your video, don't worry, you can just come back via the link which we've already sent to you. And you can also, as I say, use the chat. And if you've recently joined, it would be really good to hear where you're from, what company you work for. And it would be really cool to see, before we jump into it, or actually while we're jumping into it, and what you all think the predictions will be for 2024. So we've got some. We'd be keen to see from you all in the chat where you think we're headed. So on that note, I'm going to invite our marketplace team to the stage. Reece and Jason, I'll let them introduce themselves. They'll be running us through a bunch of data from our marketplace. I'll also be jumping in with a bunch of stuff from our Dev Nation report, but please feel free to drop questions, insights, other stuff into the chat, and I'll try and make sure that between that and the Q&A, I'm routing things through and we're covering those topics. So marketplace team, thanks for joining.
Cool. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Jason. I'm the VP of the marketplace team. Really happy to be here today and present some of our findings to you. Over to you, Reece.
Hello. Yeah, thanks for the intro, Stephen. My name's Reece. I work in the Marketplace Insights team. And if you guys don't know what that is, basically we're the team that's responsible for making sure OfferZen's is a curated developer marketplace. So In order to do that, as Stephen mentioned, we look through a lot of data, specifically candidate data and company data. We want to make sure that when companies log on to OfferZen, they find the kind of developers they want to find. And when candidates use OfferZen, they find jobs that they're super excited about. So that's a bit of background on our team. So basically this presentation, we're going to take you through some trends and predictions that we're expecting for 2024. I'm just going to go on to the next slide to show you exactly what we're going to look at. So firstly, I thought it would be cool to look at candidate volumes in 2024, what that's going to look like. Then we'll move on to what sort of roles, languages, frameworks our candidates like to use, how that's changed over the past 3 years. And then thirdly, we'll look at how candidates want to work. So specifically, whether they want to work remotely, hybrid, or in the office. And then finally, we'll end off on salary expectations, if that's cool with you guys. So first thing I'm going to leave you with is expect more candidates in 2024. So I'm going to get into the platform data a bit later, but I'll hand over to Stephen now just to give you some context in the broader marketplace.
Cool. Thanks, Reece. So the first slide that we have is from an external source, Ashby. They're an ATS platform. They're really good. They're good friends of ours. If you are looking for an ATS, go check them out. Thanks for the punt, Willem. You owe me one. All right. So this is what you're looking at is inbound applications have tripled since 2021. So this shows, because they're an ATS, which is an applicant tracking system, they get to track all the number of inbound applications. And as you would know, unless you've been hiding under a rock, the market has changed substantially for tech companies and for software developers since 2021, kind of post-COVID tech boom. And people are applying for more jobs. A lot of people got laid off, which means that they're applying for jobs. And a lot of people are becoming a lot more stringent in who they accept. And there is a lot less hiring going on over the 2-year period. So you can see that in the number of applications per hire. So one would think, cool, it makes it a lot easier for recruiters. They've got loads of inbound. What could go wrong, right? But if you go to the next slide, Reece, you can see that it's more noisy in the market, something that I was mentioning earlier, and something that we take pretty seriously at OfferZen is trying to make sure that you do the work that only you need to do. And that work is the real work of doing the looking at real profiles, looking at real people, and not having to sift through this level of noise. And what you're looking at here is that previous graph with the applications, but the blue is the number of hires per recruiter. So when there is more coming in, did my audio, am I back audio wise? Thank you.
Yeah, you're back.
I got a phone call. Is becoming less effective, essentially, because they're drowning in noise and applications. So they're able to make less hires per recruiter, which on the space of things would make you think, oh, this is it's easier, but it's not necessarily the case. So while one of the big predictions that we're going on is that both the external market and our internal markets are saying more candidates. Reece, what are we seeing on the inside?
Wouldn't you like to know? All right. So Stephen just alluded to applications tripling since 2021. So I thought it'd be cool to look at this graph. Basically, what you're looking at is the number of candidates that are going live each quarter on OfferZen since 2021. Goes up and down a bit because we see quarterly seasonality. Usually in Q1 of every year, we see the most number of candidates, Q4, the least number of candidates, and also the least number of companies hiring. Everyone wants to go on holiday. So that's why it goes up and down. But I've just pointed you to where we are currently with that big white arrow. We're in Q1 of 2024, and we're currently at the highest number of live candidates on OfferZen ever, which is awesome. So yeah, we're seeing a similar thing on the platform, way more candidates signing up, looking for jobs at the moment, and we predict that to carry on into the future. Another thing that I thought was quite interesting here is just looking at this kind of like kicked off in near the end of 2022 and 2023. We saw pretty big spikes in the number of candidates on OfferZen specifically. And that was, I mean, more people coming into the market, but also around the time where we started refining our candidate acquisition strategies, started investing more in performance marketing. And so we saw a lot of candidates onto the platform. It kind of dropped a lot in 2023 because the macroeconomic factors were not great, people hiring less. And so we needed to tighten our heuristics around who we let onto the platform, only people who match what our company is looking for. And so that's why you saw quite a steep decline. But we're sitting pretty now, and yeah, things are looking pretty good. But as Stephen mentioned, it's not all about volume. We also want to ensure quality and intent. So that's kind of a big part of my job and my team's job. Is we are a curated marketplace, and we ensure that process happens at OfferZen's. So curation is kind of a multi-step process, which I've outlined with these cool stickers, but our team kind of sits in the middle here in the screening and matching. So every morning when developers sign up, we take a look at their profiles. We say, okay, cool. Are they good quality? What companies have you worked at? Do you have the relevant skills? And are you actually looking for a job, or are you just browsing? So we want to make sure people are intentful, they're high quality, and then we'll accept them onto the platform. I thought it would also be nice to just give you a scope of this project. So the next slide is basically a funnel view. So you can see in 2023, we had 28,000 job seekers sign up, and only 9,000 ended up going live. So it is a big project. It's important that we have this curation function, and I just wanted to share a bit about that. Another interesting slide kind of showing the outcome of this process is this one. So the blue bars are people signing up, submitting profiles, and the orange bars are people who actually become live on the platform. So you can see it skews way more towards senior and intermediate developers. Firstly, that's because we curate based on quality, and with more experience, you get more quality. It's really tough to find high quality juniors, and we do end up finding those juniors and accepting them to the platform, but at much lower volumes, just because we don't have the same level of demand. So yeah, I thought that kind of illustrates the curation function quite nicely. But I don't want to go on about that too much. I also just want to show you guys, what we're predicting for 2023 in terms of the kinds of candidates you can expect. Sorry, 2024.
Reece, can I quickly just can you go back to that slide sorry guys, I missed the slide, the one about apply. So one of the things that we've been working on, because of this massive rise in applications, is providing the functionality for our companies to take advantage of this increase in applications, while taking advantage of the work that Reece and the team do, which he just showed you, of all that curation, right? So if you could get applications, but only get applications from vetted candidates on OfferZen's, then that would be theoretically a much better way of getting applications. So it's not only getting applications from the wider market, but only from vetted OfferZen's devs. So we've got this thing called OfferZen's Apply. We're really excited about it. We're really hoping it's going to work. It's one of the bigger feature releases we've done in a while. And you can publish your positions, which are visible to candidates within OfferZen's. And then in the long term is that you could probably publish it to the wider market. Again, then those people coming through OfferZen's curation and all the hard work that Reece and the team do to make sure that we're quality. So we're hoping that this bet, and this is basically born of that previous graph that we looked at, of us going, geez, the applications in the market are a thing that exists, and they will continue to grow. How can we take the OfferZen's benefit and apply it to the market? So look out for that. If you want to get access to it, then chat to your AM or ping us. But we'd really be keen to see how it fits and see if it works for folks. So just wanted to mention that's something that we've got coming, and we're quite excited about it. Sorry, Reece, go ahead.
No, 100%. That is super exciting. Thanks, Stephen. So I think I left off here. Okay, so just bringing us back to the kind of candidates that we expect in 2024. I thought let's look at basically who's been on the platform in 2022 and 2023, and take a look at that to kind of predict into 2024. So first thing is, you can expect a lot of software engineers. We are a developer-focused marketplace, but as this pie chart shows, there are also other areas of work that we have candidates in. So companies often come to us saying, hey, can you also help us fill this DevOps role, or we need a data engineer? And provided we get enough quality candidates that fit those roles, we'll accept them onto the platform, and they'll also make part of our candidate pool. But given that the majority are software engineers, I thought let's just look at that first. So what you're looking at here is basically growth amongst our most popular roles. So we're seeing how many candidates went live on the platform in 2022 and 2023. We can see among those roles, pretty nice growth, at least 10% growth for all roles. But there are two that stick out to me, which is software architects and front-end engineers, seeing the most growth. And I expect that into 2024 as well. So that's a bit about our roles. Looking at languages, similar kind of thing. We're just seeing more diversity in our marketplace in terms of languages. So these are kind of the top roles, top languages we're seeing, and we're seeing the fastest growing are Python and TypeScript, but JavaScript, C# and Java remain kind of like the top dogs, but that is also based on our demand. So in 2023, we started seeing more companies wanting Python, TypeScript, and so we had to tweak our candidate acquisition a bit to get more of those candidates into our marketplace. All right. So Stephen, I believe you also have some pretty interesting data on this topic.
So as I mentioned, the reports gone out. Will you switch to the next slide, please? The reports went out last week, and we see a very similar thing in our languages that people are using. So these are the languages that people are using the most, and you can see TypeScript and Python both growing. We like to think that the TypeScript growth in the market is because of our documentary that we released about TypeScript last year. I'm kidding. That's not why we think so. But if you haven't watched the documentary, go check it out. And Python, I think there's a massive AI spin, AI, ML, Python kind of momentum that we see throughout the report. So if you haven't checked that, then go have a look. This is the languages that people do use. And if you go to the next slide, we ask people, what are the languages that you would want to work with? And you can see Python really right up at the top there. So that kind of sits with one of the other questions we ask, which is, what do you think is the most promising industry? And AI is like kind of completely off the charts. So it was just interesting to see that what we see on the platform and what we see in the wider market, knowing that the survey data is not just OfferZen people or part of our community. We market it kind of far and wide through partners. They're kind of reflective and saying the same thing, which I thought was pretty cool to see. Also, there's a really interesting and super witty dad joke comment. Is demand for optometrists going to rise as more devs want to C#? So I thought I'd just add that in because I'm a dad. I'm allowed to. Sorry, Reece, back to you, man.
That was good. That got me. I thought that was a typo at first, and then I was like, yes, that is a stroke of genius. All right. I thought it would be cool to check out frameworks as well, just because that whole arena is a little bit more volatile. We see a lot more candidate preference coming into play there. So this is the top 10 frameworks that are found on OfferZen at the moment. So we saw some pretty big growth from our front-end frameworks. Angular and React kind of dominate the marketplace still, but we saw like really good growth from frameworks like Vue.js, Express.js, and Next.js. So expect more of that in 2024 would be my bet. And then on the back end, because we have so many C# engineers, a lot of our backend frameworks are either .NET, .NET Core, ASP.NET, or Node.js. So those are kind of dominating the top 10 at the moment, but we're also seeing really good growth among Symfony and Spring Boot, which I thought was interesting. So that's a bit about our frameworks. I think we've covered quite a lot of ground on the developer front. I also just wanted to take a quick squiz at non-developer roles. So similar visual, and I just wanted to point out some things I'm seeing here. So a lot of growth among data and AI related roles. So I think that is to be expected. I mean, data and AI are very topical. The growth of big data has just led to way more data-driven decision-making in companies. So it would make sense we see this sort of growth on OfferZen as well. Also, DevOps and cloud engineers are growing quite well. So I think that is because a lot of companies these days have to be on the cloud in some capacity, and it's pretty essential to have that expertise on your team and make sure that your development team is set up well to utilize whatever cloud service provider you use. And then to a small extent, we're also seeing engineering positions, engineering manager and lead positions increasing on the platform. So I don't think that's really like a market trend. It's just because we have a hell of a lot of intermediate and senior developers, and either they're going to say, cool, I want to be more technical, go down the software architecture route, or they might want to branch into management. And that's what you're seeing in the data. So that's a look at non-dev roles. I thought also quite cool to we've talked about a lot, which cloud technologies do our candidates have experience in? So I pulled the data across pretty much all our software engineers, cloud engineers, DevOps, and it all sort of told the same story. AWS is definitely winning the cloud wars here, followed by Azure. And for some reason, nobody likes Google Cloud. I don't get it. If anyone could drop in the chat why so few people are using Google Cloud, but this is what we're seeing from the data. So yeah, that's a little bit on our non-developer roles. Cool.
Reece, one thing that might be worth, there's a cool question from Giselle in the things, which I think would be great to. I'm not live answering. I'm going to make Reece live answer this one. The question is basically like the stats that we're showing is the platform as a whole, but what does success look like, and what roles are being hired for the most, what languages, etc. You mentioned very briefly earlier how we kind of our platform reflects success. Can you maybe talk to a little bit about that, the difference between what we're looking at here and like what the majority of placements actually and the winning on platform looks like, what the relationship is between those two?
Right. Yeah, I'd say so I just want to make sure I got the question right. So what it looks like for successful hires, what roles are being hired for most, and what languages. Right. I'd say off the top of my head, definitely we're seeing a lot of C# developers and being hired on OfferZen's. So that is one of the most in demand languages on the platform. So specifically full stack C# devs, they're being hired every week. That's kind of like the most successful hires. When it comes to our non-developer roles, also we see candidates being hired there, but to a much lesser extent. It's like mostly developers, mostly full stack, and generally these sort of let me see if I can go back. These languages, I'd say, sorry, not these ones, these ones. But also, I mean, if you get, for example, a Ruby engineer on the platform, they'll tend to do a lot better. They'll get a horde of interview requests. They will likely get placed. So it depends a lot on, like, is it a mix of the candidate's experience? More senior developers tend to get hired. And also how rare is your skill? So how competitive are you in the market? But I'd say C# and then some of those rarer like Ruby, Scala, Go engineers.
Yeah, we've also got so in the background we've got the missing part of the marketplace trio, which is Dina. She's helping us in the background. I see her dropping some notes in the doc. But basically, one thing that you can assume is that there's high correlation between success on OfferZen and what you're looking at here. These kinds of high volumes, these reflect the demand on our platform. So we curate, as Reece mentioned, who we want on the platform, who we go out and get, and with the demand in both the platform, and that demand mirrors the wider market. So you can see these all as rough mirrors of each other, of the market, kind of what's happening mostly in the market, what's happening on OfferZen as a whole, and what's winning on OfferZen. And that's through no coincidence. We actually go out and try and service the market where there's the most demand. Cool. I hope that answers the question. Thanks, Reece.
Cool. No worries. Let's see where we left off here. AWS, yes. All right. So next, I just want to look at how candidates want to work and how that compares with what's actually happening in the market. So next slide, basically, kind of no surprise to me, but most candidates want to work in a hybrid or remote environment, and we're getting less candidates wanting to go into the office. So this is pulled from our candidates' preferences when they come onto the platform. Just noting they can be selecting all of them, they can select one. So this isn't like, it's not mutually exclusive here, but there is a clear preference for hybrid and remote. And Stephen, I'd be keen to see what our external market data is saying about this.
Yeah, so our external market data says the same thing on what candidates want. This is a tough graph. It's really small. So I'm just going to kind of explain it to you as best as I can to follow the visual. This is a kind of graph called a Sankey graph. I love it because it can show movement between different categories. So at the top at the bottom, the top is remote, the middle is hybrid, and the bottom red is office. So it's more remote at the top, more officey at the top, at the bottom. And what it shows is 2023 on the left and 2024 on the right. So if you see a connection, so a kind of channel from top to bottom, that's people moving more office based. So from the blue to the purple, you see that big, thick kind of movement channel. That's people moving from remote to hybrid. And then again, from the purple to the pink, red, that's moving, that channel going down, that's from hybrid to the office. So what you can visually see here is while folks are all saying we would like to be more and more remote, the reality of it is that the directionality is the other direction. It is that more people are moving back to office. It makes sense given that the whole world was shut down and everybody was forced to work from home, and we're kind of resetting after that. But what is interesting is this attention between what business wants and what developers want. And there's this kind of perceptions versus reality type dynamic, which is happening. This insight is available in the downloadable PDF reports, not on the overall report itself. But I thought this was quite an interesting one to add.
Nice. Yeah, that is interesting. Disappointing for some, I'm sure. All right. Last thing we're going to touch on, I said, was salaries in 2024. And what we're going to do is just see how things have panned out over the last 9 quarters. So this is basically our candidates' preferred salary that they have on the platform, averaged out and split by their seniority over the past 9 quarters. Nothing super exciting here, to be honest. Things have been pretty stable for the most part. So yeah, but I just did want to show this to everyone and just put it out there. But Stephen, I think you can add a little bit more color to this conversation with the next slides.
Yeah, I hope so. I'll try and explain the graphs. So if you go to the next one there, Reece, then this is just showing it's been a tough time for juniors, essentially. And this is a kind of across the board. You saw Reece's slide where it was showing that we have this very high inbound tranche of juniors and a very small amount of them get accepted. They were also the most retrenched out of all the categories in 2024, look based on the survey data. And I think with AI on the table, it's pretty hard to justify getting like a code cruncher onto the team in the short term. Obviously, investing in your pipeline of talent is important, but juniors have really felt the pain. And what you're looking at here is the light green. The colors aren't so great. It's 2023. The blue is 2024, and you're seeing the change on the previous year. So 2023 was a good year for juniors because they got good raises, but they're getting negative growth going into 2024. And the orange line is inflation. So if you imagine that everybody's mostly getting inflation-based kind of increases, so the more senior you are, the more stable it is. But you can see that for juniors in 2 to 4 years, then that's pretty rough. So if you look at the actual distribution, 0 to 2, 2 to 4, that's roughly juniors. What is really interesting, if you move to the next slide, Reece, is so this graph takes a while to understand, but I think is pretty impactful once you get it. Is what we've done is we've taken what developers are asking for and what they actually get when they're placed on OfferZen. And if what they get is above 10% more, then you'll see that month plotted on the 10% more. So what this graph is the higher the dot, the more demand is paying over the asking price. Like in the Netherlands, you pay over the price of the house. That's what's happening is people are paying over the asking price because there is a lot more demand per supply. So that trend, as you can see, going into 2020, 2021 starts rising, 2022, 23 starts rising. And you can see that those salaries, the expectation salaries have been pretty flat, the previous graph, but the actual amount people are being paid in the market goes above that for quite a long time. And it's coming down quite sharply as we're moving into 2024. So that means that the expectations of software developers and what they're actually going to get from an offer perspective needs a bit of a reset based on 2021 to 2023. It is not the same market as it was back then. So people were getting up to 20% above what they were asking, and now that's coming back down to the zero, kind of basically getting people what they are asking for at the moment. So I thought that was a pretty cool graph to just show that impact of what's happening in the macroeconomic supply demand balance. Cool. So I think that is the last insight we have, right, Reece?
Let me check. That is.
Cool. Speaking of salaries, we have an upcoming webinar that's on the 29th, which is tomorrow. And it will avoiding salary mistakes that will cost you developers. So in this kind of new world of, hey, we've got more power as a company. Maybe that's true, maybe it isn't. You can go and join tomorrow and hear what Peter Rotenbach from TechAll has to say about that, and what the kind of new market and the new market realities mean for what salary means for a developer. Noting that's still the number one reason that developers would leave a job or take a new job, and these kinds of things are difficult to navigate. That's why we put this kind of webinar together, and hopefully that's useful. So Alex will send some links through. Who's our events person, and you can join that. I think there's a poll later in today's episode. So if you are keen to learn more about what we've spoken about today, Reece, if you go to the next one, and then the next one, our 2024 State of the Developer Nation report is now available. That thing comes out every year. This is the 4th year that we're doing it. And you will actually be offered to be redirected straight to the report at the end of this session. Nifty feature of Livestorm. And there will be, you can also just Google State of the Developer Nation report and find it if you haven't already seen it. And then also just a reminder, we have a public roadmap. That little thing I mentioned, this is also really new for us. So as you can see, it's like sitting in a Notion board. We'd love feedback on it and figure out if it's useful, but those things like apply and those kinds of things, we've got them. And then that is actually it from a content perspective. Are there any other questions in the chat that anybody has or in the questions? See, there's nothing that we need to cover directly. I'll give folks a second to see if there's any more questions. Theo Kavoj, folks. Hello, Theo. Nice to see you typing. We'll wait for your response. Just a reminder that if you do want to get involved in these kinds of conversations, every second week on a Wednesday morning, we did it earlier this morning, we have a meetup. If you go to meetup.com, look for the Scaling Tech Teams meetup, where Phil Joubert and myself discuss stuff that's happening in the market, whether it's data, whether it's kind of retaining seniors, those things change. And then we have the webinars and all that stuff. You can go to OfferZen's.com/events for those. Okay, are we seeing trends around the kind of employers devs want to work for, a product company versus a consultancy? We do not ask people that question. We do only have the data on where people do work, and I haven't looked at it, so I'm not sure, Theo. If you are interested in specific, so if anybody, the data that I mentioned from the report, it sits in a big kind of data visualization warehouse, and we are able to cut up salaries by industry, by all of these kinds of things. So if you have very specific data requests, ping us on socials or send us a mail. We'd love to try and help you find those answers. And if it's useful for you, it's probably useful for someone else in the market. So we'll probably just drop it on LinkedIn or something like that. So we have all of this internal data. We have all of this external data. We use it. It helps us, and hopefully it can help you folks. So please just send through any requests you have. Like I said, it's useful for us to spend time helping you because it probably helps someone else, and that's good. Cool. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks Reece and Jason. Appreciate all the time you put in to get all the data together. And like I said to everyone else, if you have any questions, ping us on socials and we'll get what we can to you. Other than that, Alex has got a little questionnaire up on here. If you are interested in joining any of these things that are coming up, the meetups and the webinars, which I mentioned, have a look at what they are. You can just submit the vote and Alex will get in touch with you on how to join those. And then once you're done submitting your vote, we'll close this off and we'll send you over to the Developer Nation report. So thanks everyone for joining. Hope it was useful for you. Like to see you at the next one.
Thanks everyone.